He says, in an open letter, he says, Nehru came to Madras on Tuesday with all the paraphernalia of Prime Minister of India and attempted to, in a speech, talk about Rajagopalachari and his principles. But here, in Swarajya magazine, he publishes it in 1962, February 17, and I quote from that article. I want an India clear of the atmosphere of fear in which it is now enveloped, 62, where honest men engaged in difficult tasks of production or trade can carry on their occupation without fear of ruin at the hands of officials, ministers, and party bosses. He says that, I want an India where talent and energy can find scope for play without having to cringe and obtain special individual permission from officials and ministers, and where their efforts will be judged by the open market of India. And so on. He goes on, sir. I want the corruption of this permit license Raj to go. He says that. So a member who was part of the Congress party himself writes to Pandit Nehru saying this cannot go on, your socialism is ruining this country, the license permit Raj could not continue because you are leading to corruption. Sir, periodically Congress questions, hey, BJP, RSS, Jansan, what was your role during the freedom movement? We all know it and we've said it, but I want to ask the Congress, what is your role in the Arctic, India's economic freedom? What is India's economic growth? What is your effort in building economic strength of India? No wonder when we in 21 in our budget, if that is not true, sir, why in 1980 onwards the Congress party itself wants to dump license quota Raj, 91 they want to reform and then take the claim for it saying we are the ones we reformed. You didn't have to reform if it was so good. It was damaging the Indian economy and socialism was therefore brought into the Constitution's preamble through the 42nd Act only to Amendment Act, only to prove that they are doing right thing. Although that was not needed at all because the directive principle of state policy has enough and more. And that is where I want to bring this one particular important observation, sir. The Nehru Development Model written by Arvind Panagaria. Latest book. This will tell you, sir, from an academic perspective also, how the socialism, the control Raj, the license quota Raj of the Congress's 50 years of rule ruined our economy. Though the country did come to terms with its mistake and changed course in 1991, by then it had lost 4 precious decades. Moreover, the history built over these decades continued to haunt its development efforts even after the change of course. For one thing, the base income remained low. Given that the opportunity to grow rapidly had been missed in early decades. Therefore, even an acceleration in growth to 7 to 8% range on a sustained basis could not deliver genuine prosperity for another few decades. Moreover, 4 decades of patronage of socialist ideas and policies came to hardwire Indian politicians, bureaucrats, intellectuals, and even business people in ways that made a swift march to a market economy politically challenging. That's the reality of the policy of the Congress party, which they themselves came, we've reformed the country. They baggaged the country in 50 years, and later they wanted to claim that they are reforming and bringing prosperity to this country, which is not true. So therefore, sir, when Prime Minister Modi gives a call that Arctic, first of all, sir, with all this socialism, 42nd Amendment to changing the preamble, the much promised Garibi Hatao has not delivered by them. If it's not been delivered by them, what did that socialism do to us? So when Prime Minister Modi says, Vikasit Bharat, 2047. We all should have to work together to make sure that that is done with all of our responsibilities intact, and such changes to the Constitution which they brought, which has only brought in decay for the Indian economy. I will not get into the details. Another paper from 2009, sir. Cato Institute Center for Global Liberty and Prosperity.
What are we discussing?
Yeah, we are discussing the Constitution and the mistakes done by the Congress party, as a result of which the Indian economy is suffering, sir. Socialism kills. The human cost of delayed economic reform in India, sir. I'll authenticate this and give it to you to show how Congress party's attempts have only weakened the Indian economy. Sir, we changed that by clearly saying that the budget will now very clearly focus on the Indian economy, and as a result of which we will see a lot of economic growth. I'm not getting into the detail of the budget speech 2021, sir. Paragraph 86. Those interested can see the thing. Sir, I'll come to this point about the Constituent Assembly, financial inclusion, economic justice. That is why I argued first, saying this declaration in the preamble, bringing socialism, was not warranted at all. There's enough and more said in the directive principle of states policy. Directive principle of state policy is adequate for us to do all the social economic justice related activity. But no, the Congress party was doing it for their political agenda rather than for the larger good. Sir, I like to say, sir, Ambedkar, sir, Dr. Ambedkar says on 19th November 1948, our objective in framing the Constitution is really twofold. Ambedkar says, sir, to lay down the form of political democracy, to lay down that our ideal is economic democracy, and also to prescribe that every government, whatever is in power, shall strive to bring about economic democracy. And a very clear, the directive principle, Dr. Ambedkar says this, the directive principles have a great value, for they lay down that our ideal is economic democracy, unquote. And this is exactly what Prime Minister Modi is doing. 54 crore citizens who once had no means are now being given extraordinary connection to banking. The Jan Dhan Yojana, principles guiding our democracy, equity, justice and opportunity. 50 crore mudra loans, 50 crore mudra loan accounts have created the pathway for micro entrepreneurs, street vendors and so on. Sir, Article 38 of the directive principle says, the state shall strive to promote the welfare of the people by securing and protecting social order, by ensuring socio-economic political justice, and by minimizing inequalities in income, status, facilities, and opportunities. Article 39 also says very similar about adequate means of livelihood and ownership control. Article 46 about scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. So I just want to highlight how, because of the specific actions taken by our government, you find 1969, I go back, sir, for a minute. Mrs. Indira Gandhi on the bank nationalization said, the political situation in our country demands, quote, that banking facilities should be extended in an increasing measure to backward areas, to agriculture, to small-scale industry, and so on. And perhaps banking operations should be informed by a larger social purpose, unquote. But in spite of introducing socialism into the preamble, they did not achieve any of what Mrs. Indira Gandhi justified for bringing nationalization of the banks. They paid only lip service, sir. By 2011, census data reveals that less than 60% of Indian households had access to banking service. Bank accounts, sir, zero balance accounts were only 10.3 crores. By contrast, sir, 54 crore Jan Dhan accounts have been opened since 2014. 56% of the accounts belong to women. Similarly, pensions, insurance, and so on, sir. PM Mudra, 50 crore sanctioned accounts, 68% are women. Stand Up India, 1 crore SC/ST women borrowers, 30,000 crore has been distributed, 2.5 lakh people, of whom 76% of women are benefiting. PM Swanidhi, sir, 50,000 rupees loan is given to 67 lakh street vendors, of whom 45% are women, 42% are OBCs, and so on. Sir, we repeatedly in Lok Sabha and here spoke about how former Prime Minister said, if I send 1 rupee down, only 15 paisa reaches. By bringing in technology and using DBT, Prime Minister Modi made sure that accounts will receive, the beneficiaries will receive their money directly into their account. 1 rupee means 1 rupee will reach them, and this has helped save 3.48 lakh crores of taxpayers' money. These are very important to say that directive principle of state policy, which has even more things for all of us to do, can bring in poverty alleviation, but not the Nara Garibi Hatao, which delivered nothing on poverty. So lastly, I'll pay my respects to the women who were part of the constitution makers. As I said, 15 out of 385 members were women. I would think you will indulge me when I read the names of these 50 women. Ammu Swaminathan, Annie Mascarenes, Dakshayani Velayudan, Begum Aizaz Razul, Durgabai Deshmukh, Hansa Jivraj Mehta, Kamla Chaudhary, Leela Roy, Malti Chaudhary, Purnima Banerjee, Rajkumari Amrit Kaur, Renuka Ray, Sarojini Naidu, Sucheta Kriplani, and Vijayalakshmi Pandit were the prominent women who were part of the Constituent Assembly, sir. The contribution of these women in the constitution making is immense. I know after that, Pandit Vijayalakshmi Pandit scaled heights in diplomacy. Rajkumari Amit Kaur became the first woman to be a Union Cabinet Minister. Durgabai Deshmukh was the founding member of the Planning Commission. Annie Mascarenes and Renuka Ray served as ministers in their respective state governments. Sarojini Naidu and Sucheta Kriplani went on to become first female governor and chief minister, respectively. So I also appreciate the immense role played by the All India Women's Congress, who have done extremely good work, Women's Conference, All India Women's Conference. And these women were all celebrated during Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, which we celebrated from 2022. The last observation I'd like to make, sir, it is very interesting that in this House, the first act that we passed is the reservation for women, which was the new act passed in the new parliament. I'd like to reiterate that Bharatiya Janata Party, my party, has always been committed for women and women's participation in politics. Even as early as 1994, in Vadodara National Convention, the BJP very clearly passed that seats must be reserved for women in both parliament and state assemblies. In 1994, sir. Then in 1998, BJP reiterated its commitment for women reservation by introducing it in the Lok Sabha. July 2003, BJP in its national executive in Raipur also passed a resolution to give reservation. 2007, BJP National Executive approved 33% reservation for women. 2008 again, BJP amended its constitution so that its own office bearers will have 33% reservation for women, and I'm glad to say that I'm one of the beneficiaries of that reservation. And BJP has consistently supported women's reservation. In Rajya Sabha 2010, sir, I remember late Shri Arun Jaitley supported passionately to pass that. And in Rajya Sabha it was passed. But curiously, why that didn't go to the Lok Sabha, no one knows. And in the Lok Sabha, I think it was for reasons better known, but what was said in the public was some of the alliance partners were not favoring, and therefore the Indian National Congress did not have the courage to take it into the Lok Sabha at that time. BJP's Sankalp Patra of 2014 supported women's reservation. And again, Sankalp Patra before the 2019 election also very clearly supported. But I want to highlight the fact, sir, that in 84-89, Shri Rajiv Gandhi had 426 members in the Lok Sabha and 159 members in the Rajya Sabha. They did not have the conviction to pass the women's reservation bill at that time. Very clearly, they have been anti-women always. Shah Banu case is a very clear example. Sir, I would highlight the fact that although the credit is being taken for the Panchayat Reservation Act by Sri Rahul Gandhi and the dynasty, it was not him. It was P.V. Narasimha Rao who brought it and passed it on. But even then, it was only a lip service because no financial powers were given. Now, Honorable H.D. Deve Gowda ji, who former Prime Minister, is not here, but in 1996, there was during his time, the reservation bill was brought in. Nothing was supported by Congress at that time. Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji in 98, in 99, in 2002, 2003 brought it. No, the Congress wouldn't support. But the Congress's memory is very weak that they didn't support any of the bill all the time, whether it was Deve Gowda ji or whether it was Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji. And then in 2008, even Dr. Manmohan Singh faltered. They managed to pass it in Rajya Sabha, which I said a minute ago, but did not go to the Lok Sabha for fear of their alliance partners threatening to walk out of the alliance, and they didn't want to lose power, but they wanted to save their kursi only, and therefore did not do justice to the women. Whereas Prime Minister Modi and BJP, from the beginning, stood by women, made the first change in the party, and brought the reservation bill here. And therefore, if anybody is committed to the Constitution, it is BJP, Prime Minister Modi, and this government. And therefore, people who are walking with a book in their hand, Constitution, sometimes not knowing that inside there are Kora Kagas, nothing printed. They're not even opening it to see whether it is there. But they're walking around with this book, should know that they are the ones who repeatedly have failed the cause of the Constitution of India. Thank you very much.
Honourable members, to accommodate members willing to participate in the discussion,